I am Alexandra, 35 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life with my husband Marcus. As a successful architect, I never imagined my world would crumble faster than the buildings I design. When my parents passed away, leaving me $5 million, I saw it as their final act of love. Marcus saw it differently. While on a business trip in Chicago, my phone rang. His voice was cold. "I demolished your parents' home. Now your parents will live in an old-age home." I laughed. Before I tell you why, let me know where you are watching from. Hit the like button and subscribe if you have ever discovered someone is not who they pretended to be. My story begins in a modest 3-bedroom home in suburban Pennsylvania. My parents, Kathleen and James, were hardworking people who built their lives from scratch. Dad worked as a high school mathematics teacher, while Mom ran a small bookstore in our town. They were not wealthy by any standard, but they made sure I never felt like I was missing anything important. From an early age, I was fascinated by buildings and spaces. I would spend hours drawing house plans and creating miniature structures from whatever materials I could find. My parents noticed this passion and nurtured it. They converted our garage into a makeshift studio where I could spread out my drawings and models without disturbing the rest of the house. "Alexandra has a gift," my mom would tell visitors proudly as she showed them my latest creations. "She sees the world in dimensions the rest of us miss." When I expressed my dream of becoming an architect, my parents immediately supported me. They started a college fund, cutting back on their own comforts to ensure I could pursue the education I needed. Dad took on extra tutoring jobs during evenings and weekends. Mom extended the bookstore hours and started hosting events to bring in additional income. "Education is the one thing nobody can take away from you, Alex," Dad would say. "We want you to build your life on a solid foundation." I worked hard through high school, earning a partial scholarship to a prestigious university with an excellent architecture program. Even with the scholarship, the costs were substantial. My parents never complained, though I knew they were stretching themselves thin. It was during my sophomore year at university that I met Marcus. He was studying business administration and had a charisma that drew people to him. Tall, with dark hair and confident green eyes, he commanded attention in any room. When he focused that attention on me, I was flattered and intrigued. Our first date was at a campus cafe where we talked for hours about our dreams and ambitions. Marcus spoke of starting his own investment firm, of creating wealth and security. I shared my architectural visions, the spaces I wanted to create that would bring beauty and functionality together. "We complement each other perfectly," Marcus said, reaching for my hand across the table. "You build the physical world, and I will build our financial future." Our relationship progressed quickly. Marcus was attentive and supportive, attending my student exhibitions and listening patiently as I explained the technical aspects of my designs. He introduced me to his world too, explaining investment strategies and market trends in ways that made complex financial concepts understandable. After graduation, Marcus landed a position at a respected financial firm while I joined a small but innovative architectural practice. We celebrated our successes together, planning our future with enthusiasm. 2 years later, Marcus proposed during a weekend trip to New York City, presenting a diamond ring that sparkled nearly as much as his promises for our future. Our wedding was everything I had dreamed of, with my parents beaming proudly as they walked me down the aisle. Marcus and I wrote our own vows, mine focusing on building a life of shared dreams, his emphasizing the prosperity and security we would create together. The early years of our marriage seemed perfect. We both worked hard, advancing in our careers and saving for our goals. When I was offered a partnership at my firm at 29, Marcus organized a surprise celebration, inviting colleagues and friends to toast my achievement. "To my brilliant wife," he said, raising his glass. "Your success is our success." With our combined incomes growing, we purchased a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and most importantly for me, a dedicated home office where I could work on special projects. Marcus insisted on the prestigious address, though I would have been happy with something more modest. "We deserve this," he said as we signed the mortgage papers. "This house is a statement of what we have accomplished." Looking back, I should have recognized this as the first sign of Marcus prioritizing appearances and status. At the time, I saw it as confidence and ambition. I was proud of what we had achieved together and excited about our future. Then, 6 months ago, everything changed when my parents were killed in a car accident. The drunk driver who hit them head-on left me an orphan at 34. The grief was overwhelming. For weeks, I moved through life in a fog, grateful for Marcus, who handled funeral arrangements and initially shielded me from the administrative details of my parents' estate. As the fog of immediate grief began to lift, I had to face the process of settling their affairs. This was when the surprise came. My practical, modest parents had been quiet financial wizards. Through decades of disciplined saving and smart investments, they had accumulated a nest egg of $5 million. And they had left everything to me. They never said anything, I told Marcus, stunned by the discovery. All those years of sacrifice, and they had this kind of security all along. They wanted to make sure you valued hard work, Marcus said, holding me as I cried. And now they've made sure you will always be secure. At first, Marcus seemed supportive as I worked through my grief and decided what to do with my inheritance. He held me through the nights when memories kept me awake and listened as I shared stories about my parents. But gradually, something began to shift in his behavior. What started as casual questions about the inheritance became more pointed discussions about how we should use the money. The changes in Marcus were subtle at first. He began bringing up the inheritance in casual conversation, suggesting various investment opportunities that he thought would be perfect for my newfound wealth. "You should transfer the money to our joint account," he suggested one evening over dinner, 3 weeks after the reading of the will. "I can help you manage it, make it grow even more." "I appreciate that, but I am still processing everything," I replied. "I want to take time to think about what Mom and Dad would have wanted me to do with it." Marcus nodded understandingly, but I noticed a flicker of something in his eyes. Disappointment? Frustration? It was gone before I could identify it. In the following weeks, his suggestions became more frequent and insistent. He left investment brochures on my desk, sent me links to luxury vacation properties, and talked about early retirement. "Think about it, Alex," he said. "With $5 million, plus what we already have, we could both quit working and just enjoy life. Travel the world, buy a vacation home in the Hamptons, live the life we deserve." "But I love my work," I reminded him. "And so do you. At least, you always said you did." "Sure, but that was before we had options," he countered. "Besides, you could still design things for fun, not because you have to." Each time I expressed reluctance or suggested that I wanted to use the money to honor my parents in some way, perhaps through a charitable foundation or community project, Marcus would become distant and cool. Our once warm and supportive conversations began to feel like negotiations, with Marcus always pushing for access to the inheritance. 2 months after my parents' death, Marcus came home with brochures for a $300,000 sports car. "I think we should treat ourselves," he announced, spreading the glossy pages on the kitchen counter. "After all we have been through, we deserve something special." "Marcus, that is a lot of money for a car," I said carefully. "And the inheritance is still in the estate account. I have not decided what to do with it yet." His expression hardened. "When exactly are you planning to decide?" "It has been 2 months, Alexandra." "What are you waiting for?" That was the first time he raised his voice to me about the money. It would not be the last. A week later, I discovered through a misdirected email that Marcus had accumulated over $50,000 in credit card debt. He had been spending lavishly on designer clothes, expensive lunches with clients, and weekend golf outings at exclusive clubs. When confronted, he became defensive. "I have been under stress too, he snapped. "Your parents died, but I am the one who had to be strong for both of us. I needed some outlets." $50,000 of outlets? I asked, shocked by both the debt and his attitude. "Why didn't you tell me things were getting so out of hand? Would it matter? You are sitting on $5 million and acting like it is some sacred trust that cannot be touched." That argument ended with Marcus storming out and not returning until after midnight. When he came back, he apologized, blaming work pressure and grief for his outburst. I accepted his apology, but something had fundamentally changed in how I viewed my husband. The next day, I consulted with a financial advisor and established a trust for the inheritance, with clear guidelines about how and when the money could be accessed. It was a protective measure that felt necessary after seeing this new side of Marcus. When I told him about the trust, his reaction confirmed my concerns. "You do not trust me," he accused, his face flushing with anger. "After all these years together, you are treating me like some gold digger." "This is not about trust," I tried to explain. "This is about honoring my parents and making thoughtful decisions about their legacy." "Your parents are dead, Alexandra," he said coldly. "That money is yours now, which means it should be ours." His words stung like a physical slap. The Marcus I thought I knew would never have spoken so callously about my parents, knowing how much I was still grieving their loss. In the weeks that followed, our home atmosphere became increasingly tense. Marcus alternated between cold silence and aggressive demands. He would go days barely speaking to me, then suddenly launch into arguments about my selfishness and lack of commitment to our marriage. I found myself increasingly isolated, as Marcus had gradually become the center of my social world over the years of our marriage. Many of my college friends had scattered across the country, and my work relationships, while cordial, had not developed into close friendships. There was Rachel, though. My best friend since high school, she had never particularly warmed to Marcus, something I had attributed to normal friend protectiveness. Now, her perspective seemed more valuable. "I never wanted to say anything before," Rachel admitted when I confided in her about the situation, but Marcus always seemed to be performing rather than being genuine. Like he was playing the role of devoted husband rather than actually being one. "That cannot be true," I protested, even as doubt crept in. "We have been happy for 12 years. Have you?" Rachel asked gently. "Or have you been working so hard to build the life you thought you should have that you did not notice what was missing?" Her questions haunted me, forcing me to re-examine moments of our relationship that I had glossed over. The times Marcus had dismissed my professional accomplishments if they did not come with financial rewards. His insistence on appearances and status symbols. The subtle way he had isolated me from friends who did not fit his image of our life. "Just be careful," Rachel warned before we parted. "People who suddenly show interest in your money rarely have your best interests at heart." 3 months after my parents' death, an opportunity arose at work that would normally have excited me. A major client was developing a mixed-use building in Chicago and had specifically requested me as the lead architect. The project would require a 4-day trip to Chicago for initial meetings and site visits. "This is a big opportunity," I told Marcus over dinner, hoping the good news might ease the tension between us. "The Westbrook Group rarely works with firms our size. This could really put us on the map." Instead of the supportive response I would have expected in the past, Marcus frowned. "You are leaving? Now? When we have so many things unresolved." "It is just 4 days," I said. "And maybe some time apart would be good for us. Give us both space to think." "Think about what?" he asked sharply. "About how you are keeping your inheritance separate. About how you do not trust me after 12 years of marriage." "That is not fair, Marcus." "What is not fair is how you have changed since getting that money," he retorted. "You act like you cannot rely on my financial advice now that you are rich." The argument continued in circles until I finally retreated to the guest bedroom where I had been sleeping intermittently over the past few weeks. Perhaps the time apart would indeed give us perspective. At the very least, it would give me a break from the constant tension. The morning of my departure, Marcus was coldly civil, offering a perfunctory kiss on the cheek as I headed out the door with my suitcase. "We will talk when you get back," he said, making it sound more like a threat than a promise. Chicago was a welcome change of pace. Immersed in work, meeting with clients and contractors, I felt like myself again for the first time in months. My colleagues commented on my energy and creativity, unaware of the personal turmoil I had been experiencing. "You seem so at home on this project," said Emily, one of the junior architects on my team. "It is inspiring to watch you work." Her comment made me realize how much of myself I had been suppressing at home, walking on eggshells around Marcus and his moods. Here, focused on my passion, I could breathe freely. That freedom was short-lived. The text started on my second day in Chicago. Have you thought about what we discussed? About the investment opportunity. I did not respond immediately, focusing on the client meeting scheduled for that morning. By lunch, there were 3 more messages, each more demanding than the last. I need an answer about the investment. The opportunity expires this week. Why are you ignoring me? This is exactly the problem with our marriage. I found the trust paperwork in your desk. How could you go behind my back like this? The last message sent a chill through me. Marcus had been going through my personal papers, invading my privacy while I was away. What else had he been searching for? That night, alone in my hotel room, I called Rachel. He is getting worse, I told her. More demanding, more invasive. I hardly recognize him anymore. What are you going to do about your parents' house? She asked. You mentioned he has been pressuring you to sell it. My parents' modest home, now sitting empty, was another point of contention. Located in a developing area, the property had appreciated significantly in value over the 30 years they had owned it. Marcus had been pushing me to sell it immediately. The market is hot right now, he had argued. We could get $700,000 for it, easy. Add that to the inheritance, and we would have nearly $6 million to invest. But I had been reluctant to sell. That house held my childhood, my memories, the marks on the kitchen wall tracking my growth, the treehouse my father had built in the backyard. I had been considering other options, though I had not shared them with Marcus yet. I have been working on some plans, I admitted to Rachel. Actually, they are part of why I have been hesitant to touch the inheritance. I want to do something meaningful with both the money and the property. That sounds like you, Rachel said warmly. What are you thinking? A community center, I explained, feeling a surge of excitement as I articulated the plans I had been developing privately. The neighborhood has changed a lot, and there are many families who could use after-school programs, job training, financial literacy classes. All the things my parents valued. They would love that, Rachel said. It honors who they were perfectly. I have preliminary architectural plans drawn up, I continued. I was thinking of calling it the Catherine and James Community Center. The idea had been taking shape over the weeks since their death, a way to channel my grief into something constructive. I had even been in touch with a contractor about the feasibility of renovating the existing structure versus demolishing it and building something new. The consensus had been that demolition would be necessary given the specialized needs of a community facility. Have you told Marcus about this plan? Rachel asked. Not yet, I admitted. Every time I try to talk about the inheritance, he immediately pushes for pooling it into our joint accounts. He does not seem interested in my ideas for it. Be careful, Alex, Rachel warned again. I do not like how possessive he is being about money that isn't his. The next day was our final client presentation. Despite the distraction of Marcus's increasingly aggressive texts, I managed to focus and deliver a compelling presentation of our design concept. The clients were enthusiastic, and we concluded the meeting with a celebratory dinner at an upscale restaurant overlooking Lake Michigan. I was midway through my entree when my phone rang. Seeing Marcus's name, I excused myself from the table and stepped into the restaurant's quiet lobby. Hello. I demolished your parents' house. His voice was cold, triumphant. Now your parents will live in an old-age home. For a moment, I was speechless, trying to process what he was saying. What are you talking about? You demolished my parents' home. That is right, he said. I hired a crew. It is gone. All your precious memories destroyed. Maybe now you will understand that I am serious about our financial future. And then, to Marcus's evident confusion, I began to laugh. Why are you laughing? Marcus demanded, his voice rising. Did you hear what I said? Your childhood home is gone. I took a deep breath, trying to control my unexpected laughter. Marcus, I already scheduled that demolition. It was supposed to start this week. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. What are you talking about? He finally asked, confusion replacing the triumph in his voice. The community center, I explained. The one I have been planning to build on my parents' property. I met with Horizon Contractors last month. They were scheduled to begin demolition tomorrow. Another long pause. You were going to demolish your parents' house? But you kept saying how much it meant to you, all the memories. Yes, the memories are important, but the building itself was just a structure, I said, clarity washing over me as I articulated thoughts that had been forming over the past months. What matters is honoring who my parents were and what they valued. They would have wanted that property to serve the community. You never told me about any community center, Marcus accused. I tried to talk to you about my plans for the inheritance several times, but you were only interested in how quickly we could access the money and what luxury purchases we could make, I replied, surprising myself with my steadiness. Every time I mentioned doing something meaningful with it, you dismissed me. The reality of our situation was crystallizing for me in this bizarre moment. Marcus had not been interested in my grief, my processing, or my wishes for my parents' legacy. He had been focused solely on gaining control of the money. So you're saying I did you a favor? Marcus asked, his tone shifting to something calculating. By arranging the demolition? No, I said firmly. What you did was try to hurt me in the most personal way you could imagine. You thought you were destroying something precious to me out of spite. The fact that the building was already scheduled for demolition does not change your intent. You are overreacting, he backpedaled. I was just trying to move our plans forward. You have been stalling for months. Our plans? Or your plans, Marcus? I asked. Because I do not remember ever agreeing to use my inheritance to buy sports cars and vacation homes. This is ridiculous, he snapped. I am your husband. What is yours is mine. That is how marriage works. In that moment, everything became clear. The Marcus I thought I had married, the supportive partner who celebrated my successes and shared my values, had either never existed or had been concealing his true nature. The man on the phone was a stranger who saw me and everything connected to me, including my parents' legacy, as resources to be exploited. I need to go, I said. I am cutting my trip short. We will talk when I get home. Alexandra, wait, Marcus started, but I ended the call. I returned to the table, apologized to my clients and colleagues, and explained that a family emergency required me to return home immediately. Within an hour, I had booked a flight for the following morning and packed my bags. The flight home gave me time to think, to process the enormity of what had happened. Marcus had deliberately set out to destroy something he believed was irreplaceable to me, as punishment for not giving him access to my inheritance. What kind of person does that to someone they claim to love? By the time the plane landed, I had made several decisions. First, I would secure my financial accounts and documents. Second, I would consult a lawyer. And third, I would not allow Marcus to manipulate or intimidate me any further. I took a taxi directly to my parents' property. As expected, a demolition crew was on site, but to my surprise, so was Marcus. He was gesticulating wildly at what appeared to be the foreman, his face flushed with anger. What do you mean you already had orders? I heard him shouting as I approached. I paid you to do this job yesterday. Sir, as I have been trying to explain, the foreman said with the patience of someone who had been repeating himself for some time, we received official demolition permits and instructions from the property owner, Ms. Alexandra Wilson, 3 weeks ago. Your cash offer yesterday was irregular and suspicious, which is why I contacted the police. Only then did I notice the police car parked discreetly on the street. Alexandra, Marcus exclaimed when he saw me. Thank God you are here. These people are trying to scam us. They claim you hired them weeks ago. I did hire them, I said calmly. Horizon Contractors is handling the demolition and the construction of the community center. Marcus stared at me, momentarily speechless. The police officer stepped forward. Ma'am, are you Alexandra Wilson, the property owner? I nodded, showing my identification. Your husband here attempted to pay these contractors to immediately demolish this property yesterday, claiming he had your authorization, the officer explained. Given the suspicious nature of the request, Mr. Rodriguez here contacted us. I did not authorize my husband to do anything with this property, I stated clearly. He does not have any legal right to make decisions about it. The officer nodded. That is consistent with what we found when we checked the property records. No joint ownership is listed. Marcus's expression shifted from shock to calculation. It was just a misunderstanding, he said smoothly. I was trying to help Alexandra by moving the project forward while she was away on business. By paying cash for an immediate demolition without proper permits, the officer asked skeptically. "I can handle this from here, officer," I interjected. "I do not wish to press charges at this time." After the police departed with a warning to Marcus about unauthorized property alterations, we were left facing each other amid the contractors who were tactfully trying to look busy elsewhere on the site. "Let us go home and talk about this rationally," Marcus suggested, his tone conciliatory but his eyes cold. "No," I said. "I think we should talk here, where you tried to destroy something important to me. I told you, I was just trying to help move things forward." "Stop lying, Marcus," I said, surprised by my own firmness. "You explicitly said you demolished the house to punish me for not giving you access to my inheritance. You wanted to hurt me." His facade cracked. "You have been holding out on me for months. We have bills, debts." "Your debts," I corrected. "I saw the credit card statements, Marcus. $60,000 on luxury items in the past 4 months? The $5,000 watch? The golf membership at Oakmont Country Club? Those aren't our debts. They're yours." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I had seen countless times before, but now recognized as theatrical rather than genuine. "You do not understand the pressure I have been under," he began. "The firm expects a certain image, a lifestyle. I had to keep up appearances. And you thought my inheritance would bail you out," I concluded. "That is why you have been pushing so hard for access to it." He did not deny it. Instead, his expression hardened. "You owe me, Alexandra. All these years supporting your career, being patient while you worked late nights and weekends on your precious buildings. I deserve some compensation." The naked entitlement in his voice shocked me. "Supporting my career? My income has been equal to or higher than yours for the past 5 years. I paid for half of everything in our lives, including that house you insisted we needed in the prestigious neighborhood." "This is not just about money," he said, changing tactics. "It is about trust and partnership. You shut me out after your parents died." "No, Marcus. You revealed who you truly are after my parents died," I corrected. "When you saw dollar signs instead of supporting your grieving wife." The construction foreman approached cautiously. "Ms. Wilson, we need to know if you want us to proceed with the scheduled demolition today." I looked at the modest home where I had grown up, already emptied of belongings, windows blank like eyes closed in sleep. I had said my goodbyes to it already, preserved the memories that mattered in photographs and the few treasured objects I had kept. "Yes," I said. "Proceed as planned." "You cannot do this," Marcus protested. "We need to discuss this as a couple." "The time for discussion was months ago," I told him. "When I tried to talk to you about my plans and you only wanted to know how quickly you could access the money." "This project is happening, Marcus. With or without your approval." As if to punctuate my statement, the demolition equipment roared to life. I did not return to our house that night. Instead, I checked into a hotel and made 3 important phone calls. The first was to Rachel, who immediately offered her guest room but understood when I said I needed neutral space to think. The second was to a locksmith, who agreed to meet me at the house the following morning to change the locks. The third was to a lawyer recommended by my firm's legal department, who scheduled an emergency consultation for the next day. Marcus called and texted repeatedly throughout the evening. His messages swung between apologies, justifications, and veiled threats. I responded only once, informing him that I was safe but needed space and would contact him when I was ready to talk. "You are overreacting," he texted back. "Come home so we can work this out." But I was finally seeing with clarity what working it out had meant to Marcus these past months, wearing down my resistance until I gave him what he wanted, regardless of my wishes or feelings. The next morning, I met the locksmith at our house during a time I knew Marcus would be at work. I gathered essential documents, clothing, and personal items I would need for an extended stay away. As I moved through the house, I noticed things I had overlooked before: how few personal photographs were displayed, how the decor reflected Marcus's taste rather than mine, how little of my personality existed in what was supposed to be our shared home. My meeting with the lawyer, Diane Fraser, was illuminating. A sharp woman in her 50s with direct eyes and a no-nonsense manner, she listened carefully to my account of the situation. "What you are describing is financial abuse, Ms. Wilson," she said when I had finished. "Your husband's attempts to control your inheritance, his secrecy about his own finances, and particularly his attempt to destroy property he believed was important to you as leverage, these are serious red flags." "I never thought of it as abuse," I said, the word feeling strange and uncomfortable. "We just grew apart. Based on your timeline, it sounds like your husband revealed his true character when a significant sum of money entered the picture," she observed. "Unfortunately, this is not uncommon." She helped me develop a plan to protect myself and my assets. First, we would secure a temporary separation agreement. Second, we would ensure all my financial accounts were protected and inaccessible to Marcus. Third, we would document everything that had occurred, including his attempt to illegally demolish my parents' property. When I checked my accounts later that day, I discovered Marcus had already attempted to access my personal savings account, which contained my income separate from the inheritance. The attempt had failed because I had changed my passwords after the demolition incident, but it confirmed Diane's assessment of the situation. Over the next week, I stayed at the hotel, going to work during the day and meeting with contractors about the community center project in the evenings. Marcus alternated between leaving pleading voicemails and sending angry texts accusing me of abandoning our marriage. "You have changed," he wrote. "The money has changed you." Perhaps he was partly right, though not in the way he meant. The inheritance and his reaction to it had changed my perspective, allowing me to see patterns I had previously ignored or excused. 10 days after the demolition incident, I agreed to meet Marcus at a neutral location, a coffee shop near my office. I arrived with a manila envelope containing separation papers prepared by my lawyer. Marcus was already there, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. His normally perfect hair was uncombed, and he had missed a spot while shaving. When he saw me, he stood quickly, almost knocking over his chair. "Alexandra," he said, reaching for my hands. I kept them firmly around my coffee cup. "I have been so worried. When are you coming home?" "I am not," I said quietly. "At least, not right now. I think we need a formal separation while I decide what comes next." His expression darkened. "A separation? This is ridiculous. We had one fight about money." "It was not just one fight, Marcus. It has been months of pressure, manipulation, and now an attempt to destroy something you thought was precious to me out of spite." "I told you, I was just trying to help move the project forward," he insisted. "And I have apologized for how it came across." "You told me explicitly that you demolished the house to punish me," I reminded him. "Your exact words were that maybe now I would understand you were serious about our financial future." He had the grace to look momentarily ashamed before rallying. I was frustrated. "You have been keeping me at arm's length for months." Because every conversation about the inheritance turned into a demand for access to it, I pointed out. "You never once asked what I wanted to do with my parents' legacy. You just assumed it was yours to control." "We are married," he said, as if that explained everything. I slid the envelope across the table. "These are separation papers. They protect both of our interests while we decide next steps." Marcus did not touch the envelope. "I am not signing anything. This is a rough patch, not the end of our marriage." "That is your choice," I said. "But I have already moved out, and I have consulted a lawyer. You should probably do the same." His face flushed with anger. "So that is it? 12 years together, and you walk away over one mistake. Was it really just one mistake, Marcus? Or was it the culmination of a pattern I have been too blind to see?" I stood to leave, but Marcus grabbed my wrist. "You will regret this, Alexandra. No one walks away from me." I looked pointedly at his hand until he released me. That, I said quietly, was definitely not just one mistake. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into the community center project. Working with contractors, meeting with neighborhood groups to understand their needs, developing detailed architectural plans, all gave me purpose during a personally difficult time. Rachel and other friends I had reconnected with provided emotional support, while my colleagues at the firm were understanding about my occasional need for flexibility. Meanwhile, Marcus's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He refused to accept the separation, showing up at my office unannounced and sending gifts to my hotel. When these approaches failed, he turned to more aggressive tactics. He attempted to contact clients I was working with, ostensibly to express concerns about my mental state. Fortunately, my professional reputation was solid enough that these attempts backfired, causing concern about his behavior rather than mine. I documented everything, forwarding his more threatening messages to my lawyer and keeping detailed records of every unwanted contact. When he attempted to access my email by guessing my password, triggering a security alert, Diane suggested it was time to escalate. "We need to file for divorce," she advised, "and possibly a restraining order if his behavior continues to escalate." The word divorce still felt surreal. Despite everything, part of me had been holding onto the possibility that the Marcus I thought I knew might reemerge, that we might find a way to repair what was broken. "Is that really necessary?" I asked. "Maybe with more time." "Alexandra," Diane said gently, "in my 25 years of practice, I have rarely seen someone who attempted to destroy property out of spite become a better partner with time. His behavior is following a classic pattern of escalation. Protecting yourself is not giving up, it is being realistic." I knew she was right. The Marcus I had believed in was a construction, a carefully maintained facade that had crumbled when tested. The real Marcus was the one who had tried to hurt me when he could not control me, who was now attempting to undermine my professional reputation and invade my privacy. The divorce filing was delivered to Marcus at his office, a decision Diane made to minimize the chance of a confrontation. His response was a barrage of furious texts and emails, accusing me of betrayal, overreaction, and calculation. "You planned this all along," he wrote. "You got your inheritance and decided you did not need me anymore." The irony of his accusation was painful. He was the one who had seen the inheritance as the prize, not me. The preliminary hearing was set for 30 days later. In the meantime, Marcus finally retained a lawyer who contacted Diane with demands that I found almost laughable. "He wants half of your inheritance?" Diane confirmed, reviewing the letter. "Based on what legal theory?" "Apparently being married to me for 12 years entitles him to my parents' money," I said bitterly. "That is not how inheritance law works," she assured me. "The inheritance is clearly separate property, particularly since you kept it segregated in a trust. His claim will not stand." The most difficult moment came when Marcus's lawyer submitted financial disclosures that revealed the true extent of his secretive spending. Beyond the credit card debt I had discovered, there were personal loans, a timeshare purchase I had known nothing about, and most disturbingly, evidence that he had been gambling online, losing tens of thousands of dollars over the past year. He was in financial freefall, Diane observed. "No wonder he was so desperate to get his hands on your inheritance." The revelation was like a final confirmation of how little I had really known the man I married. How had I missed the signs of such significant financial problems? Had I been so focused on my career, on building our life together, that I had overlooked his growing secrets? In a strange way, the disclosure was liberating. Any lingering doubt about whether I was overreacting vanished. Marcus had not just been pushy about the inheritance, he had been desperately trying to solve problems of his own making with my parents' legacy. The thought of their careful, prudent savings being squandered on gambling debts and luxury purchases made me more certain than ever that I was making the right decision. 6 months after the demolition incident, I was living in a bright one-bedroom apartment not far from my office. The space was smaller than what I had shared with Marcus, but it was entirely mine, decorated according to my taste with photographs, books, and art that reflected my personality. The community center project was well underway. The old house had been demolished, and the new structure was taking shape, a modern building designed to serve multiple community needs while incorporating subtle architectural nods to the original home. Working with the contractors and community groups had been therapeutic, channeling my grief and confusion into something constructive. My sessions with Dr. Levin, a therapist recommended by Rachel, had helped me process not just the end of my marriage, but the patterns that had led to it. I came to understand how Marcus had gradually isolated me, subtly undermined my confidence, and positioned himself as the arbiter of our shared reality. What you are describing is a form of gaslighting, Dr. Levin explained during one session. He would do something hurtful, then deny it happened the way you remembered, making you doubt your own perceptions. But why didn't I see it? I asked. I am an intelligent, professional woman. How did I miss the signs? These dynamics rarely begin with obvious red flags, she said. They develop gradually, with problematic behaviors interspersed with positive ones. The Marcus who supported your career advancement and celebrated your successes was real too, in the sense that those behaviors served his self-image and goals at the time. Through therapy and conversations with friends, I began to rebuild a social network that had atrophied during my marriage. I reconnected with college friends I had lost touch with, strengthened bonds with colleagues, and developed new friendships through a volunteer program at a local high school where I mentored students interested in architecture and design. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings continued. Marcus fought every step of the way, challenging the prenuptial agreement we had signed, claiming emotional distress and demanding compensation for his contributions to my career. His increasingly desperate legal maneuvers seemed designed more to prolong contact than to achieve any practical outcome. He is running up your legal bills deliberately, Diane observed after yet another frivolous motion. It is a control tactic. He figures if he cannot have you, he can at least impact your finances. Fortunately, the judge assigned to our case saw through these tactics. After Marcus's lawyer attempted to claim that he deserved a portion of my inheritance because he had provided emotional support during my parents' deaths, Judge Harmon's patience visibly thinned. "Counselor," he said, "I have reviewed the evidence, including Mr. Wilson's communications with his wife after her bereavement. Far from providing emotional support, your client appears to have viewed his wife's inheritance primarily as a solution to his own financial difficulties. Let us move on." Marcus's attempts to interfere with the community center project were similarly unsuccessful. He tried to challenge the permits, claiming that as my husband, he should have been consulted about the property's use. The City Planning Commission, presented with clear documentation of my sole ownership and his lack of legal standing, dismissed his objections. 8 months after our separation, I received an unexpected message from Marcus. Unlike his previous communications, which had been demanding or manipulative, this one seemed genuinely reflective. "I have been thinking about my behavior," he wrote. "I realize now how wrong I was. Can we meet to talk? No lawyers, no agenda, just conversation." After consulting with both Diane and Dr. Levin, I agreed to meet him at a public cafe, with the understanding that I would leave immediately if he became aggressive or manipulative. The Marcus who appeared was not the polished, confident man I had married, nor the angry, entitled person who had emerged after my inheritance. He seemed smaller somehow, his designer clothes replaced by casual wear, his previously perfect hair now streaked with premature gray. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, his voice lacking its usual assurance. "I have been in therapy. My counselor suggested it might be healing to apologize to you directly." I listened skeptically as he talked about realizing the damage he had done, acknowledging his attempts to control me and my inheritance, and expressing regret for the pain he had caused. "I lost sight of what really mattered," he concluded. "I became obsessed with money and status, and I hurt the one person who truly cared about me." Part of me wanted to believe in his transformation. The idea that the past year of pain might lead to genuine growth was appealing. But I had learned to look beyond words to patterns of behavior. "I appreciate your apology," I said carefully. "I hope therapy is helping you address the underlying issues." "It is," he assured me. "I am making real progress. Which is why I was hoping." He paused, reaching for my hand across the table. I kept mine firmly around my coffee cup. "I was hoping we might consider reconciliation." And there it was. The real purpose behind the apparent contrition. "Marcus," I said gently, "our divorce will be finalized in less than a month. I have moved on." His expression shifted, the mask of humility slipping to reveal a flash of the entitlement I had come to recognize. "Is there someone else?" "That is not relevant," I replied. "What matters is that I have rebuilt my life in a direction that makes me happy and fulfilled." I wish the same for you, but it will not be with me. You will regret this, he said, echoes of his earlier threats in his tone. No one will ever understand you like I do. I stood, leaving my coffee half finished. Thank you for confirming that I am making the right decision. Goodbye, Marcus. As I walked away, I felt a lightness that had been missing for so long. The last lingering doubt about whether I had tried hard enough, been patient enough, given him enough chances, dissolved in the face of his rapid reversion to type when denied what he wanted. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Marcus did not contest the judge's ruling, which upheld our prenuptial agreement, confirmed the inheritance as my separate property, and divided our marital assets according to contribution. He received the house, which was heavily mortgaged, while I retained my retirement accounts and personal savings. The same week, I was offered a partnership at my firm, a recognition of both my professional contributions and the success of the Chicago project, which had led to several new high-profile clients. The timing felt symbolic, a closing of one chapter of my life and the beginning of another. I began dating again, cautiously at first. A colleague introduced me to David, a landscape architect whose thoughtful approach to design complemented my own work. Our first few dates were refreshingly straightforward, with none of the intensity or pressure I had come to associate with relationships. Whether it would develop into something serious remained to be seen, but I was enjoying the process of getting to know someone new without expectation or agenda. Most fulfilling of all was watching the community center progress toward completion. What had begun as a way to honor my parents' memory had evolved into a passion project that combined my professional skills with a newfound commitment to community service. The center would include after-school programs for children, job training facilities, financial literacy classes, and a community garden, all resources that reflected my parents' values of education, self-sufficiency, and community support. 1 year after the day Marcus called to tell me he had demolished my parents' house, I stood on the front steps of the completed Kathleen and James Community Center, preparing to cut the ribbon at the grand opening ceremony. The modern building with its welcoming facade and thoughtfully designed spaces represented not just a memorial to my parents, but a new chapter in my own life. Looking out at the gathered crowd, I saw faces that represented different parts of my journey. Rachel, who had stood by me through the darkest moments. Colleagues who had supported my vision for the center. New friends made through the project. Community members who would benefit from the facilities. And in the back, a few of my parents' longtime friends, their presence a tangible connection to the legacy being honored. My parents believed that true wealth comes from what you contribute, not what you accumulate, I said in my brief opening remarks. This center embodies their values of education, community support, and creating opportunities for others. I can think of no better way to honor their memory than by creating a space that will help this neighborhood thrive for generations to come. As the ribbon was cut and people flowed into the building for tours and refreshments, I felt a sense of completion that had nothing to do with physical structures. The architect in me appreciated the clean lines and thoughtful spaces of the new building, but the daughter in me knew that the true monument to my parents was not made of brick and glass, but of the values they had instilled in me. My professional life had flourished in the year since the divorce. The partnership had brought new responsibilities and opportunities, including mentoring junior architects and having greater input into which projects the firm pursued. I had begun to develop a specialty in community-focused architecture, using my experience with the center to inform other projects that combined functionality with social purpose. Financially, I had found peace with my inheritance by establishing a foundation in my parents' names. Half of the money was dedicated to funding the community center's ongoing operations, while the other half was earmarked for scholarships to support students pursuing careers in education and small business, reflecting my parents' professions. The structure ensured that their legacy would continue to grow and benefit others long after the initial funds were expended. The personal growth I had experienced was perhaps the most significant change. Through therapy and self-reflection, I had come to recognize patterns in my relationship with Marcus that had roots in my own need for approval and tendency to prioritize harmony over authenticity. I had learned to value my own perceptions and trust my instincts, to recognize manipulation tactics, and to establish healthy boundaries. Dating David had been part of that learning process. Our relationship had developed slowly and thoughtfully, each of us bringing our past experiences and lessons learned into a connection based on mutual respect and clear communication. When disagreements arose, as they inevitably did, we addressed them directly rather than through manipulation or avoidance. "You have changed," Rachel observed one evening as we shared dinner after a long day at the center. "Not just in obvious ways, but in how you carry yourself. You seem more present." "I feel more present," I agreed. For years, I was focused on building a life that looked a certain way from the outside. Now I am more concerned with how it feels from the inside. The divorce had been finalized months ago, but occasional reminders of Marcus still surfaced. He had moved to another state after selling the house, reportedly to pursue a business opportunity. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard he was dating someone new, a younger woman who worked in luxury real estate. I wished them both well, genuinely hoping he had learned from our experience. The most valuable lesson I had taken from the entire ordeal was the importance of aligning actions with values. My parents had lived modestly but purposefully, making choices based on what mattered to them rather than external expectations. In trying to honor their memory, I had inadvertently found my way back to those same principles. Money, I had learned, was neither inherently good nor evil. It simply amplified what was already present in a person's character. My inheritance had revealed Marcus's underlying materialism and sense of entitlement, just as it had given me the opportunity to express my own values in a tangible way through the community center. As the grand opening celebration wound down, I found myself in the center's garden, a peaceful space designed to provide both beauty and practical benefits through vegetable plots and fruit trees. David joined me there, his expertise as a landscape architect evident in the thoughtful selection and arrangement of plants. "Your parents would be proud," he said, taking my hand. "Not just of the building, but of you, of how you have handled everything this past year." "I hope so," I replied. "I think they would be most proud that I finally learned what they tried to teach me all along, that the true measure of success is not what you have, but what you give. And that the strongest foundations are not built of concrete, but of integrity." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the new building, I felt a sense of gratitude for the difficult journey that had led me here. My husband's attempt to hurt me by demolishing a house had instead set me on a path to building something far more valuable, both literally and figuratively. Has money ever revealed someone's true character to you? Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led to a better path? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories of resilience and growth, and share with someone who might need to be reminded that sometimes, what looks like an ending is really just a new beginning. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, the strongest houses are built on foundations of truth.